So, Mario sells for $100,000 and a little change for the NES, the original game. That is crazy. So, a sealed copy that's been graded sold for $100,000 and $105. That is a lot of money for a sealed video game. But why is it worth that? Let's do a little history real quick just to kind of get it to that point. So, in the United States in 1983, we had a little thing called the video game crash. Basically, video games weren't selling that well. Retailers sold their stock at relatively cheap prices to get it out. Consumers, retailers kind of lost faith in the whole video game market for the home console. So Nintendo, who has been doing just fine with the Famicom in 1985, decided, let's bring our console over to the United States. The problem was, retailers didn't want it. They were done with video games. So Nintendo had to redesign their console, call it the Nintendo Entertainment System, and sell it with a robot to make it look more like a toy. And then they also had to tell the retailers to convince them, hey, you don't have to pay for it. We'll stock the shelves. You pay us back when you sell the items. So, I mean, it wasn't a bad thing for the retailers. The retailers said, hell, all right, we won't have to worry about losing any money. We'll lose a little stock shelves, but let's test it out. Nintendo, they thought they had a hit on their hands. So, what's the loss? They were pretty certain they could make their money. So that brings us to the first thing. Because Nintendo didn't want to waste money, basically, and it was just a test market in a couple cities across the country, their boxes weren't shrink wrapped. One less thing to do. All the boxes had was a little sticker over the tab saying Nintendo. The first version in the 1985 is the matte finish. And then as they expanded out, because it was, catching some steam, in 1986, this expansion also made the boxes change slightly. The sticker now had a circle sticker that was glossy, not matte anymore. And it still said Nintendo. So, at first glance, they looked very similar. Now, the Super Mario Bros. For the NES has had many variations of boxes in its history. This basically, the one that sold, would be the second variation with the glossy sticker. Now, that kind of brings us up to present day. This is the second variation with the glossy sticker to sell. It is almost mint. It was graded at 9.4 out of 10. That's pretty amazing for a game that came out 33 years ago, that if it was put on a retail shelf, how did it survive like that? Could it have been a game that was first never put out and later found by a somewhat collector who kept it in pretty good shape for a couple years before a bigger collector picked it up? Who knows? It's hard to believe a game that would have been put on a retail shelf with no shrink wrap got almost no damages, no dented corners, no scratches. I mean, a 9.4 out of 10 is basically perfect. This is the only one in existence that people know about. So that kind of raises the price. Now, is it worth $100,000? It depends. This group of people who bought it are looking to resell it again in the future, which is obviously $100,000 for a game is ridiculous to spend. But for a historical point of view, it's probably worth spending that money for a museum person to receive it and put it in a museum. Artwork goes for millions of dollars, and Mario is a piece of art. No one knew at the time what Mario would have been turned into, but now everybody knows who Mario is. Still, $100,000 is expensive. But what it does help is maybe more copies will start showing up because people are like, oh, I didn't know Mario could be worth that. And they start finding their old copies, and someone may find a matte finish version. Now, will they find one that's in greater condition as the glossy version? Maybe, probably not. But At this time, the glossy version that's just sold is the oldest Mario complete sealed game ever. So that puts it up there with people that collect coins, comic books, any old piece of collectibles. So yeah, that's insane. And I mean, in a video game standpoint, Nintendo is kind of where video games started. Yes, there was video games before Nintendo, but for the home console, Nintendo kind of brought it all underneath one roof. They dominated the market share, and they really made characters, not just Nintendo, but the NES, the games for the Nintendo, really finally brought in characters that people could identify and look more than just some of the older graphics. So it does have some historical point of view, and yeah, it's expensive. I could never see myself spend that kind of money, even if I had millions of dollars, but it did. It sold. We'll see what happens in the future. Maybe in another decade or two, it goes up to $1 million if it's still the oldest and perfect condition and no one finds a matte version. Alright guys, let me know what you think. Would you buy it if you had the money easily just to throw it out? I guess if you had millions, it wouldn't be an issue. Alright guys, I had fun kind of talking about the history a little bit. You know, it was a quick little video, but I think I might do some more history videos. If I forgot to say something or mention something, or, you know, what you think about the game selling for over $100,000, leave it in the comments. Alright guys, have a good night, keep on gaming, and I'll catch you next time.